Hi everybody, Dan Oman here with some exciting news. DRF Formulator, the gold standard in past performance information, is now free, exclusively on DRF Bets. Join DRF Bets with the promo code WINNING, get a $250 first deposit match bonus, a $10 free bet, and free Formulator already uploaded to your account. Access Formulator's premium features, including sortable trainer stats, race replays, personalized trip notes, and lots more. Free Formulator, exclusively on DRF Bets.
Hi everyone, I'm David Aragona, and in this video we're taking a look at the future race at Aqueduct on Saturday, race 8. It is the Gander Stakes for the New York bred 3-year-olds going the one-turn mile. Some pretty exciting runners stepping up into the stakes ranks for the first time in this race, including the outside draw on the number 7, Bold Journey. Let's throw up the field for this race and check out the morning line. Bold Journey I did peg as the 6-5 morning line favorite, and I think he's a horse that a lot of people expect some big things off after his blowout victory against Maiden Company last time out, but he will be stretching out in distance for the first time in this race. And he's facing some pretty good rivals. This is a relatively high quality New York bred stakes race. The number 5, Bereze, who's undefeated in 2 starts. He was impressive winning last time out. The inside draw on G Money actually beat Bold Journey in his debut, so he can attract some money here, as well as the number 2, Boss Making Boss Moves, another horse that's coming off an impressive last out victory. So a lot of interesting horses in this race. We're going to sort through all of them. Before we get to that, though, let's take a look at the Time Form US Pace Projector for this race, and no surprise to see the outside draw on Bold Journey projected to be on the early lead. He did break his maiden in gate-to-wire fashion last time at Aqueduct, going 6 furlongs, so it stands to reason that if he had the speed to get in front going 6 furlongs, he certainly is quick enough to lead this field going a mile. But there are some other horses that could press him in the early going, primarily the number 1, G Money, who's shown back in 4th on the Pace Projector, a close 4th, but he is a horse that actually led Bold Journey when they faced off in their career debuts, so I would expect him to show a lot more speed this time after they experimented with rating tactics in his last race. So he seems like the one that could make this pace heat up if it indeed does play out that way. Let's take a look at the last race of Bold Journey when he broke his maiden on December 18th, going the 6 furlong distance at Aqueduct. And this was a pretty impressive maiden victory. He was racing first off a private purchase in this race and a trainer switch to Bill Mott after making his career debut in the Carlos Martin barn. And he was no secret this time. He was bet down to 1-2 and basically ran to those odds. He took command in the early going and ran away from this field late. Do note, though, he's running through the entire stretch on his left lead. He never changes leads in this race, so that's a little bit of a concern. Not so much because he is still an inexperienced horse, but because he's done it now in 2 starts in a row where he's hung on his left lead for a little bit longer than he really should. So just something that's worth bearing in mind as he's stretching out in distance, because sometimes as horses go longer, that propensity to not change leads can become an issue. That said, Bold Journey got a strong 103 Time Form US speed figure in his last race. If he repeats that kind of number against this field, he's probably going to win. He'll just do so at a pretty short price. There's also a lot of reason to hope that he will be able to stretch out in distance because he has the pedigree to do so. He's by Hardspun, a versatile sire, and he is the younger half-brother to American Revolution, the Grade 1 Cigar Mile winner from last year. It was also 3rd, going a mile and an 1/8 in the Pennsylvania Derby behind some good horses. So plenty of route pedigree on the dam side, and it seems like Bold Journey has always been pointed towards this 1-mile distance. And furthermore, Bill Mott has good numbers with last out maiden winners stretching out in distance. Not the highest ROI, but he's got a win rate that's upwards of 25% if you look it up in DRF Formulator. So a lot of things to recommend at Bold Journey. The only negative is he's going to be a pretty short price in this race. Let's actually now take a look at Bold Journey's debut, because another horse that's in this race was actually the winner of that race, and that is G Money, who's breaking from the rail on this day, but he was the number 5 when they faced off in this November 19th maiden race, and that is Bold Journey in the pink silks with the red shadow roll ranging up to his outside. And like I said, notice that Bold Journey is hanging on his left lead in this race, but also check out G Money to his inside, who is battling back and actually turning away Bold Journey in the late stages of this race, and he's going away as they come through the wire. So based just on this effort, I would say the G Money beat Bold Journey fair and square when they faced off in their respective career debuts. The problem is G Money came back in his next start at the Rico Park and was a little bit disappointing. He went off as the 4-5 favorite that day, justifiably so after that impressive debut victory, but he took a significant step backwards to finish off the board. I do think, though, what worked against him in that spot is that the connections played around with rating tactics. They experimented with taking him off the pace, and that might just not be the way that G G Money wants to run, because he was so successful setting the pace in his career debut. And there were some other fast horses in the Rico Park, so maybe he was going to get outrun anyway, but he just did not get a particularly aggressive ride last time, and they took him off the early pace. He didn't seem to react that well to being in behind horses early, and just had no punch through the stretch. I would imagine breaking from the rail on this day, stretching out to a mile, he's going to be more aggressively ridden by Eric Cancel, and I would not be surprised if he's ridden the same way that he was in his debut, and he actually takes the early lead away from Bold Journey, and maybe that rival can stalk on the outside. The big question with G Money will be the stretch out in distance. Being a son of Munnings, they can sometimes get a mile. There's not a ton of evidence on the dam side that says he wants to go that much longer, but he does seem like a horse that was finishing well in his debut, so that gives some hope that he can handle this one-turn mile. I don't think he's out of this by any means, because he did look like he had some talent in that first start. Speaking of the Rico Park, though, the stakes that G Money comes out of, let's take a look at that race, because I do want to highlight the winner from the Rico Park, Bereze, who comes into the stretch 4 wide here. That's him in those Paradise Farm black and gold silks running down the center of the racetrack, and I thought he finishes up really well to win this race. He was wide around the far turn, looks like he was going to idle a little bit in the top and upper stretch, but I like the way he levels off coming past the 8th pole here, and he really grinds down this field and is running through the wire impressively to put away this group and win by nearly 3 lengths as they come onto the finish line. It should be noted, this was his first start coming off a 7-month layoff. We hadn't seen him since all the way back last May of his 2-year-old season, and he was a nice winner that day, wearing down what seemed like a decent field for the time to win by half a length. Obviously, that did not come back as the fastest race, only getting 81 time form US speed figure, but Bereze took a step forward off the long layoff last time, and that was not a race that featured that fast a pace in the Rico Park. You see that one blue color coded time form US pace figure, and Bereze did well to close into that pace and win off by 3 lengths. So I think that Bereze does have upside coming out of that race. Again, the question for him will be the stretch out in distance, but he's by a Lauban. He's out of a successful appeal dam, so that pedigree says to me that a mile should be no problem. And furthermore, the dam herself, Right Prevails, she is a full sister to Closing Argument, a horse that you might remember was in the Kieran McLaughlin's stable about 10 years ago and was second at a big price in the Kentucky Derby. So Bereze does have pedigree to go a longer distance, and he just kind of strikes me from a physical standpoint as one that should not have any trouble handling a mile. So I think this one has upside coming now second off the layoff, and he figures to get a good trip sitting just in behind those 2 horses that I just talked about, G Money and Bold Journey. So I do view him as a definite win candidate in this race. Another horse that's coming off a stakes victory is the number 6 Geno, and let's take a look at his victory back in December in the New York Stallion Series. This was a $500,000 race going 7 furlongs for horses by New York bred sires, so not necessarily New York bred runners, but horses by sires that stand in New York, and I think that resulted in a slightly softer field than what we're seeing here, and therefore Geno didn't have to run the kind of speed figure that's really going to be necessary to be competitive against this field. The one thing that I will say, even though this race came back on the slower side, just getting a 62 buyer and an 85 time form US speed figure, we have seen multiple horses that finished behind Geno in this race come back to improve their speed figures in subsequent starts, including Unique Unions, the 3rd place finisher, who came back and was a good 4th in the Rigo Park at his next start with a faster number. Especially the 2nd place finisher, Un Oho, who came out of that race and was second last week at a big price against Open Company in the Grade 3 Withers, taking a big step forward from the speed figure standpoint. So maybe that New York Stallion Series race was a little bit stronger than the figures indicate for Geno. I still think he's a bit more of a turf horse and would have to take a step forward on the dirt, but I can understand why some people might want to use him underneath based on the strength or the relative deceptive strength of that last race. One more horse to mention is one that actually has a victory going this mile distance, and that's the number 2, Boss Making Boss Moves. Let's take a look at his victory from New Year's Eve, actually the final race of 2021, as he wins here off by nearly 10 lengths, going this 1-turn mile distance. Not facing the strongest field in the world here. I think it was a field that maybe looked stronger at the time coming into this race. The runner-up, Curlin's Wisdom, who I do believe was the heavy favorite on this occasion, came back at his next start and was very disappointing, finishing off the board after taking some money in a subsequent maiden race. So maybe that downgrades the performance of Boss Making Boss Moves a little bit, but look, he won this race by over over 9 lengths, so he clearly was superior to that field on the day, and he ran by far the best speed figure that we've seen from him up until now, moving all the way up to a 91 time formula speed figure last time out, and he did so while stretching out to this 1 mile distance for the first time. So maybe he's just a horse that's getting better with added ground. Don't know how much pace he's going to get to close into here, and he does seem like a horse of all the ones that I've talked about that really does need some pace ahead of him to have his best chance. He got that last time. We'll see if the same thing happens here, but he does seem like a horse that is on the upswing at this point in time. So let's throw out my picks for this race. I'm going to take a small shot against that likely favorite, the number 7 Bull Journey. Not that I'm way against this horse. I just feel like he's going to be a pretty short price in this spot, and I do think he's got to prove that he can handle the stretch out and distance and show that he's got that tenacity to actually change lead this time and beat a much better field. So I'm going to take a small shot against him with the number 5 Bereze. I just like what I've seen from the way this horse finishes off his sprint races. I do think he's going to be able to handle the stretch out and distance, and I think he's got upside to improve second off the layoff. So I put him on top as the likely second choice. I do have that number 1 G Munning in there for third. I think he is another win candidate in this race. I do think this race will be decided by the 1, 5, or 7. Just taking a slight shot against Bull Journey at what I do believe will be an underlaid price in this Gander Stakes on Saturday at Aqueduct. Good luck if you're playing this weekend.